Good morning. And today's Daf Yomi is Moed Katan Daf Test, Moed Katan 9. And we are going to start on Daf Test around 6 lines from the top of the page. The Gemara has been discussing this very powerful idea, this very powerful spiritual idea that we don't mix one joy with another joy. Ein ma'arvin simcha simcha. Tosos on the bottom of Chasam Abay says the reason why we don't do it is because ein osim mitzvahs chavilos. We don't bundle mitzvahs together. Everything is supposed to have its own special time, its own special mitzvah. So the Gemara says, how do we know this idea that we don't mix one joy with another? Gemara says, we learn that from Shlomo Melech. When Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, built the temple, he built the base of Mikdash, and he gathered everybody together. And first he gathered them to celebrate the building of the temple, the dedication of the temple, and then they celebrated Sukkot together. It says, Shlomo he gathered them together, everybody, a kahal gadol, for 7 days, which is 14 days. And if it really is the case that you could combine one joy with another joy, you should have just waited until Sukkot, and then just done 7 days, and done 7 days once for both occasions, the dedication of the temple and also for Sukkot. So that's a proof that the reason why he separated was because we're not ma'arev simcha b'simcha. We don't combine the two joys. Gemara says, "Dilma minter lo natrinan ve'echli disrami avdinan." Okay, Gemara says maybe you don't delay it, but if it would happen that then you could have done it together. You just don't delay it to do it together. Gemara says, and so therefore maybe you could get married if the wedding comes on Yantif on Moed, you can get married. The Gemara says no. No, a contractor, a builder could always leave something over. He could have arranged a situation that his work coincided with Sukkot, finished right before Sukkot, and then dedicated the temple while they celebrated Sukkot. So the fact that he didn't do that, we learned Shiurei Binyan Beis HaMikdash. So for the fact that he didn't do that, we learned that you're not supposed to be marvin simcha b'simcha. So the Gemara said, no, that's not a proof because Shiurei Binyan Beis HaMikdash lo misharinan. So the Gemara says, no, you don't leave over the base of Mikdash. You don't say, oh, I'm going to push off building the base of Mikdash. When you get the opportunity to build the base of Mikdash, you build the base of Mikdash. You don't delay it. You don't delay the building project. You just full steam ahead when it comes to building the base of Mikdash. So the Gemara says, yeah, but he could have left over. Hold on one second. So he says you could have just left over the Amakalya Orev. What's the Amakalya Orev? The Amakalya Orev is this, like they used to put spikes on the top of the base of Mikdash roof so that the birds wouldn't go to the bathroom. So therefore the birds wouldn't mess up they wouldn't ruin the roof of the temple. So we could have left that part over, the spikes to keep away the birds. The Gemara said, no, Amakalya Orev tzarach binyan abaysu. That's also part of the temple. That's also part of the building of the temple. The fact that this is an essential part to keep the temple clean. So how do we know Eimar and Simcha b'Simcha? So Gemara says, okay, fine. Ela demiyatar kra, ela demiyatar kra. So from the fact that we have an extra verse, from the fact that we have an extra verse, what's the extra verse? Because it says Shivas Yamim, there's extra words. It says 7 days and 7 days. So since it says 7 days and 7 days, Mirtei, so since it says Arba'as Yom, Shivas Yamim Lamali, since it says 14 days, why does it have to say 7 and 7? Shmamina, he kept the two things separate: the dedication of the temple and the celebration of Sukkot. So the Gemara says, Amar Parnach Amar B'Yochanan. So okay, so they celebrated 7 days prior to Sukkot. So therefore, Osa Shana Lo Asu Yisrael Yom Kippurim. That year, the Jewish people didn't celebrate Yom Kippur. They didn't do Yom Kippur. And they were worried. They said, oh, maybe we didn't celebrate Yom Kippur. We're going to be punished from Hashem. Kares, you don't celebrate Yom Kippur, you get a severe punishment of Kares. So a heavenly voice went out and said, it says, all of you are getting a share straight in the world to come. Don't worry. My Darish, what was their drasha? Amru Kal V'chomer, they said a logical argument. Uma Mishkan, Shein Kedusha, so Kedusha Solam. Just like the Mishkan, whose Kedusha is not forever. The Karban Sibor, V'yom Kippurim, the Anush Kares. So the Mishkan is a temporary holiness. The temple is a full holiness. The Mishkan, they brought individual offerings. Ma Mishkan, Shein Kedusha, so Kedusha Solam, the Karban Yachid, and Docha Shabbos, and it's an individual sacrifice, and it pushes off Shabbos. And it's Easter skila. The Shabbos is a prohibition of skila, which is more severe, Rashi says, than kares. Well, so if that's the case, Mikdash, the temple, the Kedusha, so Kedusha Solam, which is an eternal holiness. The Karban Sibor, the Karban Sibor, and the sacrifices they brought were communal offerings. The Yom Kippurim and Yom Kippur was a less severe penalty. The Anush Kares, it was just a Kares penalty, not just a Kares, but it wasn't a severe skila. Well, Kol Shekaim for sure, if it pushes off, the Mishkan for sure should push off, it should push off the temple. So therefore, they made a Kal V'chomer to themselves. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, how am I? How you dog him? So why were they so worried? What was the big deal? They had a proof from the Mishkan that they could push off Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, no, when it comes to the Mishkan, there the sacrifices they brought, they pushed off Yom Kippur was for Tzarach Kavo, it was all for God. Here it was for their own individual eating. It was Tzarach Hechel, it was their own individual eating. So therefore they were worried maybe the Kal V'chomer broke down. So the Gemara says, well, you only have an easy solution to that. If they were so worried that they weren't allowed to eat, well, let them bring their services, their sacrifices, but don't eat or drink. They don't need to eat or drink. The Gemara says, no, that would not have been possible. There's no joy without a little nash, without eating or drinking. So that's why they needed to eat. So the Gemara has a question of Mishkan the Dachi Shabbos Minawan. How do we know that the Mishkan overrides the Shabbos? If you want to say, because it says when they brought the Chanukas on a Siyam, it says they brought the first day and the seventh day. No, that's not a proof. Maybe it means the seventh day of sacrifices. It doesn't mean that it was on Shabbos. So it says biyom, ashtei asar yom. It says yom twice. On the 11th day twice. Ma yom kuorat. So just like the 11th, just like the day, a day is straight. These 11 days were straight, without a break. Mara says, maybe it only refers to those days that were capable of bringing the carbon. The Yom Maruyin. The Mara says, no, Ksiv Krach Rina. There's another verse. It says, Biyom Shnei Masar Yom. Again, the same limud. It says the word Yom twice. On the 12th day. Ma Yom Kura Tufaf Shnei Masar Yom Kumar. So the days were completely straight. The Mara says, Doma Hachinami Yom Maruyin. Maybe here it only means those days that you could bring it on, which wasn't Shabbos. The Gemara says, no, in Kain Trey Krai Lamli. No, it wouldn't have said Yom twice. Why did it say Yom twice? Teach us this fundamental idea. Trey Krai Lamli. So this fundamental idea. Umikdash, this fundamental idea that they were pushed off Shabbos for the Mishkan. Says the Gemara, okay, hold on. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, how do we know that the temple pushes off Yom Kippur? Gemara explains, if you want to say because it says 14 days, maybe it only means the days that you are capable of. Maybe, how do you know Shlomo Melech pushed off Yom Kippur? Maybe it just means those days that you were allowed to celebrate. Gemara said, no, Gamar Yom Yom Mehasam. They derived the Yom Yom from there. What was from there? It was from the Mishkan, and they compared it to the temple, and that's how we said you're allowed to do the service on both. Yom Kippur pushed off them. That just like Shabbos was pushed off by the dedication of the altar, so too Yom Kippur was pushed off by the celebration of the Chanukas HaMikdash. Yatz Sabasko, a heavenly voice went out and said to them, all of you are going, you have a share in the world to come. We know in the Achil, how do we know that they were forgiven for eating on Yom Kippur that year? Mara says the Tani Tachlifa taught, it says by Yom HaShmini on the 8th day, which we know was the 22nd of Tishrei, the Shmini Atzeret, Shilach HaSa'am, Shlomo Melech sent away the people, And they blessed the king, and they went to their tents. They went to their tents rejoicing. Now, for all the good that God did to David, his servant, and to Israel's people. And what does it mean they went to their tents? That they went and they found that their wives had already gone to the mikvah. They were in a state of ritual purity. They were rejoicing. They were benefiting from the divine splendor. That they found them of good heart. Every single one of those unions resulted in a male child. For all the good, that a heavenly voice went out and said, all of you have a share in the world to come. So that proves that they were forgiven. But David Abdul Yisrael, for David is servant, and for Israel's people. I understand why it makes sense for Israel's people. We understand why the Jewish people were happy, because they were forgiven. What was going on for David? So the Gemara says, just at that moment when Shlomo Melech wanted to bring the ark into the temple, the gates combined with each other. Amar Shlomo Shlomo said 24 renanos, 24 prayers beseeching God to let the gates open so they could bring the ark in, and he wasn't answered. Pasach Amar, he opened up his mouth and he said, Su Sha'arim Rashechem, open up your gates. Lo nana, wasn't answered. Kibin Sha'amar Hashem Elokim al Tashay Pnei Meshichecha Zachra Chazdei David Abdecha. He said, God, do not turn back the face of your anointing one. Remember with kindness, David, your servant. At that moment, the gates opened up. He was answered. At that moment, the faces of those who hated David turned black. Everybody knew that David was forgiven by God for that sin. The sin of Bathsheba, Rashi says. Rabbi Yochanan ben Amasai, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, Tanu Parashas Nedarim. So they learned together Parashas Nedarim. Is that really even clear? Like, what is the connection? Why is this story brought in now? Like, this is a story that's seemingly unconnected, but the reason is because it says Bayom Hashmini Shilach Hasam, and then it says on the 8th day they sent away the people and they blessed the king. So we see from here about the power of a bracha. That's what it's going to tell us. So what happened? So Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim are also sending away people, and you're supposed to send it when you send somebody away, you give them a bracha. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Amsai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, they learned Parshas Nedarim in the house of Rabbi Shimon Yochai, Rabbi Shimon Yochai's Beis Medrash. Iftar minei be'orta, they said that night we're leaving, and they said goodbye. Let's Safra hadar become iftar minei. In the morning they went back and they said goodbye again. Amar Lahu. So he said to them, you already said goodbye to me at night. You, our Rebbe, you taught us if there's a student who leaves his Rebbe, but he goes to sleep in the same city, he needs to go say goodbye to him another time. Because it says, on the 8th day, Shlomo sent away the people, and they blessed the king. So we're coming back to you again. But that was on the 22nd of Tishrei. But then it says on the 23rd of Tishrei, Shlomo sent away the people. So which is it, 22 or 23? We see from here that a student who leaves the Rebbe, but he slept over that night, go back again and say goodbye. Amar Lebrei, I'm sure Rabbi Chai said to his son, wow. He said about Rabbi Yonasan ben Amsai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, he said, trying to remember, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, it's very interesting that Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim is the one who appears here, because Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim also appears in Shabbos, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis, and that's the story of Rabbi Shimon Yochai where he got into trouble. And I think Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, I have to check the Gemara in Shabbos 33b, if you could check it right in the middle of the page, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai got into trouble because he said everything the Romans do, they do for themselves. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim was praising the Romans for their beautiful marketplaces. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said they do it for themselves. And then he got in trouble because they caught him because somebody told the Romans what he said. They had to go into hiding. Now, what did Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim say there? Roy, you'll tell us. You find it. It's on 33b, right in the middle of the page. Probably like 25 lines from the bottom. So anyway, so Amrei Lebre, he said to his son, B'nei Adam Alalo Anashim Shal Tzurahim. These people are very special. They're Anashim Shal Tzur. They're people of special form. Zilga Ben. You have the Gemara here. So Roy pulled up the Gemara. He says, the story says that Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, V'Yasef, Yehuda ben Gerim Gabeyu. They were sitting with Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim opened up his mouth and he said, look how beautiful all these marketplaces. Rabbi Yossi of the Romans. Rabbi Yossi was quiet. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said everything they do for themselves. Halach Yehuda ben Gerim v'siper divrayim v'nishmu l'malchus. Yehuda ben Gerim went and said over what Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, and he told the Romans, and they said to him, Yehuda she'ila yis'ala. And so they said to him, you, because you did this, you're going to be elevated. So this story does not, the Gemara in Shabbos 33b has a very negative version of the Yehuda ben Gerim story. But here in our Gemara, Rabbi Yishim Rechai, it starts off well. He says, look, these are Anashim Shal Tzurahim. These are distinguished people. We are going to have to stem the two sugyas, figure out how we make what happened in their relationship, because he said, Zilga ben levarchucha, go to them and get a bracha. So Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went to Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim and Rabbi Yonasan ben Amsai to get the bracha. He found that they were throwing these verses, that they were finding contradictory verses. Ksiv Peles ma'agal raglacha v'kol derachacha yichonu. So one verse it says Peles ma'agal raglacha v'kol derachacha yichonu, which means, says Rashi, weigh each mitzvah and to see which one is bigger, and then do the greater mitzvah. But the other verse was saying Orachayim. The other verse says Orachayim pentapholes, meaning to say, don't measure each mitzvah, just go right ahead and jump into each mitzvah, whether it's bigger or smaller. So the verse says, one is by a mitzvah that other people could do, then you don't have to weigh it. But if nobody else could do it, on top of Tessama Beis, kama mitzvah if nobody else could do it, you jump right into it. So then what happened was, they're sitting there. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim was sitting there still with Rabbi Yonasan ben Amsai, and they threw two other psukim against each other. What do they say? That the Torah is more precious than pearls, and all your possessions then are equal to it. Which means, but the mitzvahs of heaven, but your possessions are not equal to it. But the chavtzei shemayim, the mitzvahs are equal to Torah study. But it says, then there's another verse that says, no mitzvah, nothing is equal to it, which even means other mitzvahs. So what is Torah study equal to other mitzvahs, or is it greater than it? So the Gemara says, Lo kasha kama mitzvah. If a mitzvah can't be done by other people, you have to rush into it and do it. Otherwise, Torah study takes precedence. Then they looked over at him and they say, "My boy," they said to him, "What are you doing here?" So Rabbi Elazar says to them, he said, "My father told me to go to you to get a bracha." So they said to him, "What's the bracha?" May you sow and not harvest. May you bring stuff in, but not put it out. May you acquire stuff, but don't bring it in. Your house be destroyed, and you have to dwell as like a guest in somebody else's place. Your table be messy. May you not see a new year. So when Rabbi Elazar or Shimon came home, his father said to him, he said to his father, not only did they not give me a bracha, they also they tell me terrible things. They gave me almost curses. He said to them, what did they say to you? So Rabbi Shimon said to his son, what did they say to you? So he said, this is what they said to me. He says, no, you don't understand. Everything is a bracha. Tachza means to harvest. What that means is, it means you're going to sow, you're going to have children, and they won't die. The topic means the ayol kalasa, you're going to bring in a daughter-in-law, lim tu banech, and your son won't die. To lifkun, that you'd have to get rid of, that she'd have to leave and marry somebody else. Tepak vo ta'ayol, it means, what does that mean? Toad benasa, you're going to give birth to daughters. Yamusu givrayu, and then their husbands will not die. V'lahadru l'vasech, and then they'd have to leave you. So, and then they'll return to you. V'lichruv beisech, that your house will be desolate. V'leisu v'shpizech, and you're going to have to dwell as like a guest. The high alma ushpizech, the high alma beisa. So because this world is you're like a guest, we're like passing through this world, and the world to come is going to be the high alma is a base. The world to come is the real house. T'chsiv kirbam b'teimo olam al tikriu kirbam elo kivram, their graves. So that's the proof that the world to come is the real house. And what does it say? Levalvel p'torech. What does it mean? Your table be messed up. B'barnai b'nasai. Your children. You have children at your table. They can make a messy table. A messy table is a sign of a house with a lot of nachas. And then what does it say? It says in the book, and it says, "V'lo tichsei shana chadasa." You'll not see the new year. D'lo tamus imtech. Your wife won't die. V'lo tinaseh intisach risa. Then you have to marry another wife, and then it'll be a shana rishona, the first year with your new wife. You're not going to have that. You're going to have your same wife. So every bracha every curse he gave was really a bracha. So why didn't they, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim and Rabbi Yona's son, just give Rabbi Yona's ben Amsai, why didn't they just give him the bracha straight? Why did they have to give it to him backwards? So I was thinking that the answer must be because they wanted to teach him the lesson that sometimes you see something in life and you think it's a curse, but really it's a bracha. You have to look at it and try to understand that really it's a bracha. And it might not seem that way at first glance. At first glance, you might not realize it's a bracha, but eventually you're going to come to realize it's a bracha. And that's what he was trying to teach Rebbe Elazar ben Reb Shimon. So now we have the other version. Another story was Rebbe Shimon Chalafta iftar minei de Rav. So Rebbe Shimon Chalafta left Rav, or so some other versions of the story is the Rebbe, that he left Rebbe, Amar Lei. So his father said to him, Zila Gabe Delivrechef. So his father said to him, go to Rabbi Shimon Chalafta so you can get a bracha. Amar Lei, Rabbi says, what's my bracha to you? Do it to Vaish, what is Vaish? That you don't embarrass anybody, you don't get embarrassed. Also Gabe Avua. And so he came back home to either Rav or Rebbe, and he said to him, my Amar, what did he say to you? He said, Amar Milam Ba'amu. He just said to me, yeah, just some like regular words. No, he gave you the same bracha, the berachan kucha brichul Yisrael that Hashem gave the Jewish people. Because what did God say? V'taneba, and He repeated it. Tersiv v'achaltem achol v'savoa v'ilaltem v'lo yivoshu amilo olam v'datem ki b'kerav Yisrael ani v'lo yivoshu amilo olam. So it says the word embarrassed twice. So one is to teach us in that pasuk from Yoel that may you not be embarrassed, and may you not embarrass others. That was the bracha that God gave to the Jewish people. Okay, we said in the Mishnah that a woman is allowed to do her tachshita, her adornments on Chol Moed. Tana Rabbanan Eloi tachshite nashim. What are these adornments of the woman? They are kocheles, they are the makeup, upokeses. This is the way they did their hair. Umavira strak al paneh. They could put the blush on their face. Bigadami mavera strak. Some say it means that she's allowed to comb, or shave her body hair, not the hair on her head, but the hair on the rest of her body. The Beisal de Rav Chisda Mekashta Bampe Kawasa. Rav Chisda's wife was very old, so old she had a daughter-in-law, and she was putting on her adornments in front of her daughter-in-law. Yasef Rav Huna Bar Chinda Kamed Rav Chisda. Meanwhile, Rav Huna Bar Chinda was sitting with Rav Chisda, V'Yasef V'Kamer, and he was teaching over our Mishnah. He said, "Lo Shanu El Yalda." When did we say in our Mishnah that you're allowed to do adornments on Chol Moed? That's only if you're a young woman. But if she's elderly, can't do it. Amalei, Rav Chesed says, no way. Kim. I swear, I feel even your mother, your grandmother, they're here. I feel even if a woman has 1 foot in the grave, she can put on her adornments. She think about a woman who's 60 is like 6 with respect to running to the sound of a bell, meaning running to a party. Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo Tassid, Rabbi Yehuda says that on Chol Moed, you're not allowed to put on the lime, which they used to use to remove their hair from the body. Rabbi Yehuda Omar Isha Lo Tassid, a woman is not allowed to put on the lime to remove the hair because it's considered to be disgusting for her to remove the lime. And Rabbi Yehuda was moed that by sid, by lime, that she could peel it off on Chol Moed. If it would be capable of peeling it off, that you're allowed to do it. Even though it's painful for her to remove it, it's very painful. Simply lachazman, but she's going to be so happy with the way her body looks afterwards, so they'll be rejoicing. Rabbi Yehuda, as far as Rabbi Yehuda say, even if something is painful, then if eventually you're happy, you can do it on Chol Moed. But tonight, Rabbi Yehuda says, "Nifra mehem neisha meitzer." Yehuda says, from an idolater, you're allowed to collect from them on the day of their idolatry the money they owe you because it's distressing. And Amar, they said to him, even though the idolater is in distress now, eventually he'll be happy, so you can't do it. So we see Rabbi Yehuda says, I don't care if it's distressed. Well, we don't look about it if it's eventually happy. So why here does he allow it? So Amar Nachman Yitzchak, the says the 2 laws are different. Hanach lehilchos moed, the kul meitzer. You can't compare the laws of Chol Moed to other laws because every law in Chol Moed is right away to do it is a pain. Well, eventually you'll be happy. Like cooking and all that, you're allowed to do it in Chol Moed, even though it's a pain, but eventually you'll be happy. So Ravina Amar Kusi, he gives a different answer. He says, no, Kusi Linyan Pira on all mates. This idolater is always going to be upset that he had to pay. Amar Yehuda Benot Yisrael Sheigiu Pirkan. It says the daughters of Israel that they reach a certain age, they reach a certain age, but meaning to say that they started going through puberty, but they did not reach the age where girls typically go through puberty, and so they're embarrassed and they want to remove their hair. The poor girls use the crudest way, which is this lime to get rid of the hair. The wealthy ones use flour. The princesses use bishemen amor, the myrrh oil. Shenemar shisha chadashim bishemen amor. 6 months in shemen amor. My shemen amor. What is a shemen amor? Rav Huna bar Chia Amar satachas. He says this is satachas. Rav Yirmiyah bar Ami says this is shemen zayis. This is olive oil shelo hevi shlish, which was not yet 1/3. Tanya Rav Yehuda Omer ampiknon. This is ampiknon, which is shemen zayis shelo hevi shlish, which is olive oil that had not yet grown 1/3. So why do you use this oil on their hair? Why do the girls use this? It removes the hair, makes the flesh soft. Removes the hair, makes the flesh soft. Rabbi had a daughter. Tafla Aver. He every day he worked. He tried to help her with like the spa treatment limb by limb, but only one limb at a time. And then when it came time for her to get married, she got a dowry of 400 zuz. There was an idolater in his neighborhood. He had a daughter. He put all the cream on, all the treatment on her at once. It was too much. Umesa, she died. Amar Katla Bibi Labarti. He said, Bibi killed my daughter. Amar Nachman Rav Bibi Deshati Shikra. Therefore, Bayim Binte Tafli. He says, Rav Bibi, he used to drink the beer, and therefore his daughter was needed this spa treatment to get rid of the hair. Anando Shatin and Shikra, we don't drink beer. So our daughters don't need that. Our daughters don't need that treatment. Okay, I'll be happy to take any questions.